to Fashion Forward, where we look at how fashion and society impact each other. I'm your host, Brittany Carl. Let's get started. Today we're going to be talking about heels, specifically looking at the history of heels and men. The first account of heels is 10th century Persia. Now these heels were very similar to stilettos today, but they were only used by men. In the Persian army, there were soldiers on horseback. Those soldiers found that they could fire bows and arrows while standing on their horse's saddle a lot easier if they were wearing heels. The heel itself helped them to balance and stay standing up so that they could literally fire bows and arrows while standing on a horse. It wasn't until the 12th century that women were first documented wearing heels. Now in the 1700s, it was mostly men who were wearing heels. It was a status symbol of nobility. Mostly kings, princes, and noblemen were those you would see with heels. It was King Louis XIV who really popularized heels with men, specifically noblemen. Royalty then were a lot like celebrities today. They inspired fashion. This meant that heels began to be used by noble women and commoner men. It took a little bit longer, but common women also began to wear heels. Now the noblemen did not like this. First, they didn't want to be associated with women at all, let alone common women. So this led to a difference between men's heels and women's. Women's heels began to have a thinner heel, and that led to it being more uncomfortable and much more difficult to stand on. The French Revolution did affect heels. You did not want to look like a noble person, so most commoners stopped wearing heels altogether. Not just in France, but also in Britain and America, people did not want to wear heels anymore. It was starting to be associated with witchcraft. And you definitely didn't want to be associated with witchcraft, otherwise you were going to get burnt at the stake. The Enlightenment period and Renaissance era actually led to women wearing heels primarily. This was because it was being taught that men were rational and women were irrational. So if you were wearing heels just for the sake of fashion, that was considered irrational and a thing only for women. During the 1960s and 1970s, heels were coming back into fashion a little bit for men. The Beatles, for instance, popularized the Chelsea boot, a type of heel that was primarily worn in Cuba, and men started to wear it all around. Today, men and women both wear heels, although it is primarily targeted for women. But history has shown us that fashion flip-flops every now and then, so maybe in 20 years, men will be the ones primarily wearing heels. Who knows? But then again, it sometimes just depends on the type of heel. Just remember that high heels were originally created for men and to help soldiers running into battle on a horse. So, quite the history there. Fashion and society are always moving forward, so check out next week's episode where I will cover the history of belts.